Hi, Paul Gieleghem here, Clinton Township Supervisor. Welcome to Supervisor Spotlight. I've got a couple of guests here that are both business owners on Gratiot Avenue, one of our signature corridors here. First is Carolyn and Dorian from Dorian Ford.
Hello.
As well as Pete Thomas.
Good morning.
From the Cash Exchange.
Thank you.
But you guys are not just here on behalf of your business role. You're here to have a great conversation about the Gratiot DDA. And so, Pete, you're the chair. Carolyn, you've been a member of the DDA for many, many years. And you were off for a little bit, but you just got back on. Tell us why the DDA has been important to you.
Well, the DDA started so many years ago, and it was created to help not only the businesses, but our neighbors. You know, we're really blessed to be in a township. It's kind of like a hidden secret, that corridor on Gratiot. And I think we go from Wellington Crescent to 14 Mile Road.
Yep.
And so we worked collaboratively to work on things like lighting, which was so important, and landscaping, and just kind of get people together to make things change and make it better for people. So
Absolutely.
I'm happy to be back on the board, so thank you.
Well, we're very happy to have you because we understand the importance of dealerships. We understand the importance of the corridor. Pete, you're now chairing the Gratiot DDA.
Correct.
And so how long have you been chair?
I've been chairing for the last 3 years. I've been on the board since the very beginning. In fact, I've been sitting on the board along with Carolyn since before it was the DDA, back when it was the Gratiot Avenue Business Association. And I believe that's probably early 2000s, 2001, 2002. So we've been very active in trying to make a difference along the corridor. The DDA was formed in, I want to say, 2002, 2003. And at that time, the DDA had nothing. Gratiot Avenue was really in the need for some loving. When you left Roseville, you had these bright lights with the street lights. You got into, you passed 14 Mile on Gratiot, and it was like a curtain of darkness. Mm-hmm. And it took the DDA probably about 6-7 years to get enough funding in order to start the streetlight project and then also the landscape project. So these are two things that the DDA has brought to the community and we feel has made a difference.
Right. So now, probably, as you guys are talking, I'm sitting here thinking, we're saying the Gratiot DDA. We know what DDA is, but I'm thinking that most of the public out there doesn't know what a DDA is. We use these acronyms all the time in government and in our industries, right? But so Gratiot DDA stands for Downtown Development Authority, which is a tax capture. So it's an economic development tool that the state allows local communities to create.
Correct.
That then says, okay, on the base year, we're freezing the amount of taxes that go to all of the different taxing authorities. And then everything that comes in after, as property values rise, as new businesses come on and more money comes in, then that money can be set aside. It doesn't go to the schools, to the township, to the police millage, to the fire millage. That money is then set aside, those new funds, and it goes into a pot that then we can use to make those improvements.
Correct.
And you guys are the board that decide where that money goes. How do we make these improvements?
Well, you know, I think that with the local businesses and getting their feedback is so important. And to understand that the small amount of taxes that we are collecting, we're collecting it from the businesses. Mm-hmm. The businesses do well because of the neighborhood. And so working together and making sure that we're making decisions that help everybody.
Yep.
You know, I mentioned it's a hidden secret, this corridor. It really is. You know, the local businesses kind of know one another.
Sure.
The neighbors kind of know us. Mm-hmm. And it's really, you know, a great position to be in where you can talk to the businesses and address some of the needs that are there.
Well, and so here's, I think, one of the things that is significant about this, and that is Gratiot is one of the iconic corridors within the whole metropolitan area. right?
Correct.
So you look at the urban core of the city of Detroit and all of the spokes that go out. So there's Gratiot, so first of all, Jefferson Avenue, then Gratiot, then Woodward, then Michigan Avenue, and then Fort Street. Gratiot is one of those iconic corridors. It was the route from Detroit to Port Huron, historically. Now it's a thriving corridor, and we want to make it even more of a thriving corridor. How do we do that?
Well, getting to your point about Gratiot Avenue, it's one of the most highly traveled streets. I believe the traffic counts 78,000 cars a day drive along the corridor, and which gives a lot of our businesses exposure. And that's why the corridor is as vibrant as it is. You have two of the largest car dealerships. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they're in the top 10 in the country as far as car sales. I mean, that in itself tells you a lot about the corridor.
Yep.
So with the if I may jump back to the DDA, with the DDA and what the DDA is providing the community right now is the ability to create a vibrant business corridor, which we feel will improve the area. It's making shopping and restaurants more welcoming. And if I may, can I jump on some of the projects that we've done?
Sure, absolutely.
And some of the things that we have,
Yep.
In a plan for the future. So one of the first things we did way back when, and that was the streetlights. And at that time, we had the largest LED streetlight project, and I want to say it was in the country, the state, perhaps the country. And we did that, and then we also started on the Corners Project, or the landscaping. And the Corners Project was about having landscaping at the south entrance into the corridor, meaning 14 Mile, and then same thing over at the north entrance, and that's near Wellington Crescent, across from Cosley, Pontiac, not anymore, GMC. Thank you.
Buick GMC.
Thank you. So, unfortunately, after we did get the landscaping in, we had the crash in the economy. So then the funding for the taxes that funded the Downtown Development Authority kind of dried up on us. So we weren't able to continue some of these projects. Now with your leadership, the DDA has been revitalized, and now we have some funding coming back in, and some of the plans that we have in the future are rather impressive. Do you want to jump in there, Carolyn? You want me to continue?
Yeah, and I think that when you look at the corridor, the Gratiot corridor, it's pedestrian friendly. It's designed that way, but you've got 8 lanes in most of the area. And so having a group kind of talk about what's needed to make it safer, more attractive, more places to shop, giving us that opportunity. And now that we have some, funding available, I think that we've got a lot of ideas on what we want to do.
Well put.
Absolutely. So, all right. So when you think about this, with Gratiot being this iconic corridor, one of the things that we're seeing is, in Roseville, you've got the freeway exit, 94. I mean, I can tell you, somebody in Clinton Township, if I'm going to Detroit, I'm going down Gratiot to 94, right? And then I'm coming back that way. I want to see that vibrancy. I want to see that improvement, facade improvements, trying to put programs together that can help these businesses upgrade.
Got it.
And then we're talking about brick line streets. We're talking about, more landscaping at corners, try to make it even more pedestrian friendly, right? And I think some of those things are paying off. We now have a Starbucks and a Five Guys. It started with a new bank that came in, the Fifth Third Bank, in the regional shopping plaza. I go way back, so I remember Montgomery Ward's.
I was just going to say, yeah, we were there. Montgomery Ward's was vacant.
Yep.
Yeah, we started this.
Absolutely. So, now we have the Lowe's, but those outlots have been a challenge. Once the bank made that investment, then we saw even more investment, right?
Correct, and we're hoping that we create an environment where it starts feeding on itself.
Yep.
And we're starting to see that. We were talking about some of the projects that we have that we're trying to put together now. Well, first off, we have the Gratiot Cruise,
yes,
which is a huge event for the community. We're one of the sponsors of that. We work closely with the Gratiot Cruise Committee. We have that going. Now with the landscaping, we were starting to revitalize that, and we have plans on in fact, we have commitments to start redoing the landscaping, and that's starting in the spring. We're talking about forming the Corners Project, and that's where at 14 Mile, 15 Mile, and Metro Parkway, we'd have something a little bit more pedestrian friendly. We'd have benches, low-lying lights, landscaping, something that would be more welcoming to pedestrians. We talked about redoing the bus stops and getting the bus stops redone.
Huge, because Gratiot, the whole SMART network, is the busiest line of the entire SMART network.
Correct.
Gratiot is the most utilized bus transit corridor.
Agreed.
Yep.
A lot of riders
Yep.
are on those buses.
Yep. So one of the things that we know is Clinton Township is mostly residential. Unlike the big communities in Macomb County, like Sterling Heights and Warren, they have those huge industrial corridors from Van Dyke to Mound Road. And that means revenue coming into the local community that they don't have to do much for, right? We don't have that. So, and we're seeing the economy change, particularly in the retail sector. So much of our economy is now Amazon and people not having to shop locally. They're having, they're getting their stuff mailed right to the house, and that's convenient. But it's a strain on our local businesses.
Agreed.
So filling out those commercial corridors is huge for us. It's widening out the tax base. And so the DDA is a great vehicle to use to try to reinvigorate that corridor.
Agreed.
So now you mentioned the Gratiot Cruise. Let's just briefly talk about that. So one of the first meetings I went to was the DDA. And I heard, that there wasn't a lot of communication between the Gratiot Cruise Committee and the DDA. And we know that both of you exist to kind of support each other. And so now it's nice to see that communication is coming online, that we're trying to make the Gratiot Cruise one of the biggest we possibly can.
Well, you put forth a lot of effort, Paul, and it was impressive, how you did get the Gratiot Cruise and the DDA back together again.
Yep.
Because they bumped heads for a little bit, but now we're back on track, and it's impressive. And we're moving forward with that.
Yep.
And the other projects we were looking into, we were talking about the flower pot project, and that's where businesses would buy flower pots, all the same, to show solidarity within the DDA. Mm-hmm. We also talked about the sculpture project that would bring some little art and some excitement along the corridor. We do have a library, which is impressive. I know you've been talking to SEMCOG about trying to get some grants that would help us create more of a walkable area in Clinton Township. So there's a lot of good things going on, and we appreciate if I may speak on your behalf, but we appreciate your leadership in helping us through this, because you really revitalized this Downtown Development Authority. Even when it was floundering, you brought it back to life. So, bravo. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
But as the supervisor, all we can do is kind of set the sort of overall priority. But it takes people like you, both Pete, Carolyn, you guys are the ones that are on the board. You're the ones that sort of, every month meeting, assigning roles to all of the committee members, getting everybody sort of working together to make these things happen. We only can prioritize it. You guys are the ones that are doing the work. And
can we go back to, let's talk about the empty space that we have, because I think that's so critical.
Yep.
And, we look at what can we do to make the area more vibrant, right? Well, obviously having tenants and new businesses come into your area helps. And things like what Pete mentioned on landscaping, beautification, making transportation easier, via bus or, by walking. And we talked a lot about lighting and making sure that the area is well lit, because businesses, when they come in, they're going to want that. They're looking for that.
Sure.
And so those are the things that we're talking about. Those are the things that we're trying to come up with solutions for. Okay. And I'm going to bring this up again. Our area is, it is a bedroom community, right? You've got businesses, and I keep bringing up neighbors. We know many of the neighbors. They know us.
They interact with you on a daily basis,
We know
right?
many of the businesses.
Right.
So, we really work well together in making things better. And so trying to get new businesses in, we have some work to do. And that's what our mission is.
All right. So as you guys are working to improve that corridor, we're going to work to try to make sure we do code enforcement, to make sure that the existing businesses are keeping their properties up to the highest level that they possibly can. You guys are helping with that because you have a facade improvement plan. Well, you'll provide some match money that then says, hey, you make an investment, we're going to make an investment in you.
And the way that works is you propose a plan to the township, and at this point, we're at $5,000. You get a $5,000 grant to, providing you match it, and the township again will give you a $5,000 grant to help improve your facade. And we're hoping to get it up to $10,000. So if you come up with $10,000, then the township will, or the DDA will grant you the other $10,000. And that's we're in the hopes of that's creating a little bit of excitement along the corridor, and we start seeing the improvements that are necessary.
Absolutely. So I think some of the next stages are, right, working with the realtors, the commercial realtors that are, they have businesses, they're looking for places where they can relocate. We are looking for entrepreneurs that are going to want to come and set up a business on the corridor, as well as developers that have some vision, that can do things like not just fill out a place, but to try to do mixed-use development, to try to increase residential, to try to create businesses, to try to make it more walkable, to make it look better, and then those things just feed off of one another.
Agreed.
So,
Agreed.
All right. Well, thank you for the work that you do on behalf of Clinton Township, and thank you for providing this type of leadership within our community.
Yeah, and Paul, thank you for giving us the opportunity.
Oh.
We're here, we've been here a long time, and we're staying here. So thank you.
There you go.
And thank you for your leadership.
Well,
'cause we're really excited about seeing some things being done, and especially on the corridor.
Well, we're looking for more people that can help us on all of our committees. That's one of the missions. We are trying to make sure that our committees are active, engaged, doing things, not just meeting and talking about stuff. So I know you guys are out there every day trying to make that happen.
Yep, let's get it done.
All right, let's get it done. Great words.
It's
Great
been a
way to
pleasure.
close. Paul Gieleghem for Supervisor Spotlight with our guests from the DDA and the great things that are happening on Gratiot.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining
Thank
us.
you.